So I wanted to make this video and speak into something that's really special, really important to me, the idea that finding love is a spiritual process. And when I look out at, a lot of the people we've worked with and a lot of the people we chat with on social media and a lot of the problems that people are having in their love lives, I think one of the core reasons that we have so many problems is that we don't acknowledge the spiritual nature of this process. We don't acknowledge that finding love is actually a spiritual process that we have to go through. And I firmly believe this, and this has been my honest to God experience. It's been the experience of my wife and the clients we work with. We go through the same process with all of them. And it's been my honest to God experience is that if you do not accept this process as a spiritual process, and if you don't do the spiritual work that's required as a part of this process, you will find a relationship, and you'll probably find many relationships, but you won't find the kind of relationship that you really want to have. You won't have that conscious relationship, that epic love story, that lifetime partnership. And what we see is lots of people going out there and getting into relationships and getting into all kinds of relationships, but they're not the relationships that we really want to be in. And people go, oh my God, how did that happen? How did I fall in love with this person? How did I open myself up to someone who would hurt me so badly? And the reason we do that is because we don't understand and accept the spiritual nature of this process. So in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. I'm going to tell you what this spiritual process is. And I'm also going to give you a really exciting opportunity to learn about this process in a really powerful way. So before we get started, please like this video. Please share it with a friend. Please subscribe to the channel. Please follow us on Instagram, wherever you're watching this video. I want to make sure you continue to see our videos. Also, after you watch this video, and I want you to watch this video all the way to the end because I'm going to cover some important stuff. But after you watch this video, I want you to go to myconsciousrelationship.com. You can register for a workshop I'm hosting where I'm going to break down this process for you in a very powerful way. So thanks for watching today's video. I appreciate you being here. Let's dive in and get started. Now, I remember in my early 20s, and some of you may have heard me share about this, but I was with a woman who I firmly believe that she was somewhere on the narcissist spectrum. This relationship was incredibly toxic. It was just a disaster of a relationship. Lasted about a year long. I was 21 years old when I met this person, and this was my first adult relationship. And this was a really big turning point for me because it was so destructive and so toxic and so hurtful. Like just to give you an example, I don't want to go into too much, but just to give you an example, it was the kind of thing where I used to write poetry. I don't do that so much anymore. I guess this is kind of my outlet now, is writing blogs and videos and stuff. But back then I used to write a lot of poetry. And she would sometimes love my poetry, and she would ask me to read her my poetry, and I would read it to her. And it's very vulnerable for me to share my poetry with someone like that, because I really don't, back then I didn't really share it. It was very personal, just something I did for myself, but I would share it with her, and she would just be enamored by it. She would just be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But then the next day she would mock me for it. Like, I don't want to say some of the things she said because they weren't very nice, but it's just, the point is like, I just share that to give you an example of the kind of relationship this was, and the kind of mind games and the toxicity and how hurtful it was. And I was like truly in love with this person. I had fallen, and when we broke up, I remember the day we broke up, some drama had happened. I don't even really remember what it was, but I just remember I got to a place where I could not handle it. I said, being alone has to be better than being with this person. Being alone has to be better than being with this person. And I remember she was sending me a bunch of nasty text messages, and I'm just looking at these messages, and I said, I can't do this anymore. Have a nice life. And I never even got a response. Those were my last words, and she couldn't even dignify that with a response. And I remember sitting there that night and looking at this message thread, just all these nasty things she said, and just me, I just can't do this anymore. And even thinking like she couldn't even respond to my final message to her, and she just ignored it like it didn't even matter. And I remember being so crushed and so hurt and so let down. And this was a huge turning point for me for this reason, because I thought to myself, and I had some beliefs at that time in terms of we create our reality, and that, we have the ability to find what we want in life, and we can fulfill our dreams. And this is a philosophy I've always kind of lived with, and I've worked really hard to have my dreams become a reality, and I'm still working on it. But back then, almost none of my dreams were reality. My life pretty much across the board was a disaster. But I remember looking at this message thread and thinking, like, if I am the one creating my reality, and if I'm the one creating my relationships, why did I create this? Why did I fall in love with someone who would treat me like this? Why did I tolerate this for an entire year? Why did I allow this to go on and on and on? Why did I accept this? Why did I bend over backwards trying to please someone? And the answer to all those questions was because at that time, I did not understand that this is a spiritual process, that finding love is a spiritual process. And I think one of the biggest reasons that we struggle when it comes to finding love is because we don't acknowledge that aspect of the process. We don't acknowledge and we don't honor the fact that there's actually a lot of work to do here. And this is the way it goes for most people. Most people go out and they get all dressed up and they put on their best show and they behave in a certain way and they act a certain way to try to get the person they like to like them, or there are all different ways it looks, but it's all kind of the same thing. Is we go out and we put on an act to try to attract someone, try to get that person's attention, to get that person to like us. We don't really show who we are. We instead kind of show who we want them to think we are, and we put on the show to try to get them to like us, to try to get their attention, to try to get their attraction. And then when we get into a relationship with that person, little by little, that act starts to come off, that show starts to come off, and we start to see each other for who we were. And because we were both doing the same thing, we start to see that this relationship isn't what we wanted, and we become resentful, we become bitter about it. And sometimes this drags on for many, many years. But at the end of the day, the dynamic is kind of always the same, is that we begin the relationship with an act and with putting on a show for the other person. And as that show begins to crumble, so does the relationship. And then what do? Well, we go do it again. We go do it again, and we go do it again. And we keep having these crash and burn relationships because we're not honoring the spiritual process. So I know by now you're probably wondering, you're going, okay, Shane, what the hell is the spiritual process you're talking about? So I'm going to tell you that right now. You've got to think about it like this. You've got to think that who would you need to become in order to have that epic love story, that conscious relationship, that lifetime partnership, that person that you wake up with and go to sleep with, that person who kisses your forehead in the morning? Who would you need to become in order to have that relationship be the next natural step in your life? Be the most natural thing for you to step into. Like it would make perfect sense. Like it would actually be weird if it didn't happen, right? And a lot of people are sitting around going, relationships don't work for me, or relationships suck, or people are manipulative, or people are going to hurt me, or, our thoughts, our feelings, our internal context around relationships is not a positive one, is not a hopeful one, is not an inspiring one, is not an encouraging one. When we think about relationships, we don't feel excited about the possibility and the potential and the anticipation of what might happen and where it could go. And we're not optimistic about it. We're actually negative, pessimistic. And this is the spiritual journey I'm talking about. This is the transformation that needs to happen. You need to align yourself completely, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You need to be completely aligned with the idea of that relationship that you're dreaming about. You need to have every aspect of your being be so in touch with that and so connected to that and so aligned with that it makes perfect sense that person would show up. It makes perfect sense that would happen for you. It would actually be very odd and very strange if it didn't happen, because the trajectory of your life and the choices you're making and the way you feel and the way you think is so in touch with creating that experience for yourself and creating that relationship for yourself that it would just be the perfect and the most natural thing that could ever happen. The idea is this, and this is something I heard from a mentor of mine. His name's Barry. He's an amazing mentor, amazing teacher. I studied under him for many years. But his name's Barry Warren, and I got this from him. I always loved it when he would say this. He'd say, if you want a 10 relationship, a perfect 10, right? We say a perfect 10. If you want a perfect 10 relationship, you've got to be a perfect 10. Now, I want to be clear. Being a perfect 10 doesn't mean being perfect, okay? So I'm not saying you have to be perfect, because we are all perfectly imperfect. We're perfectly flawed. But you've got to be a perfect 10 in that you've got to be the partner that your ideal partner is looking for. You've got to be the person that person is dreaming about. You've got to be the person that person is hoping they're going to find. You've got to become that, right? So if you want a perfect 10, you've got to be a perfect 10. And he said, what a lot of people do is they're really a 5, but they dress up like a 10, and they go out to the club and they meet another 5 who's also dressed up like a 10. And then when they get home and they take all their clothes off, they realize that they're both 5s, and then they're pissed off about it. Now, I know that's a funny way of saying what I just said earlier, but it's once the act comes off, once the show comes off, the relationship falls apart. You cannot pretend to be a 10, because the truth is you can't pretend anything in a relationship, because it all comes out eventually. The true colors always show eventually. So you've got to actually truly be the person that your ideal partner is looking for. You've got to be the person that your ideal partner is hoping to find, and the person that they want to fall in love with. Now, I can already hear the wheels turning in your mind, and I know what you're about to say. You're about to say, Shane, I just want to be myself. Why can't I just be myself? And this is the most spiritual part of everything that I'm talking about right now. I really want you to hear what I'm about to say, because this happens in our courses sometimes. We start talking about people, okay, so who would you need to be to have that relationship show up? Who would you need to become in order to have that relationship be the next natural step? And people say, well, I just want to be me. I don't feel like I should have to be someone else. So this is what I want to say, and this is the spiritual part of the process. This is the spiritual journey. Becoming that person is becoming the most yourself that you could possibly be. See, the truth is, you say, I just want to be myself, but what most people say is themselves is not really the fullest expression or the highest potential of themselves. Most people say, I'm just being myself, and what they're really being is a fraction of what they could be. What they're really being is a small percentage of what they're truly potential capable of. And in order to create that partnership, in order to create that epic love story, in order to be the person that your ideal partner wants to fall in love with, you've got to be the fullest expression of yourself. And that is not inauthentic. That is the most authentic thing you can do. And if you want to talk about a spiritual journey, I believe that life is a spiritual journey. And I believe that what we're here to do, the reason we are here on this planet, is to have these challenges and these circumstances and relationships and money and career and all this stuff. And we're here on this planet to work with all these different dynamics and become the fullest expression of ourselves within all of it. That itself is a spiritual journey. If you want to find love, if you want to create an epic love story, if you want to have that partner that you can count on to be there for the rest of your life, that they'll be there when you wake up and they'll be there when you go to sleep, and they'll kiss your forehead in the morning, and they'll hold your hand when you walk in the park. If you want to create that love story for yourself, the most important thing you can do is become the fullest expression of yourself. And when you become the fullest expression of yourself, what starts to happen is you start turning people's heads everywhere you go. And your ideal partner is going to see you and they're going to say, that's the person I want to be with. And some of you might have all kinds of reasons why that wouldn't work for you. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm not enough of this, I'm not enough of that. That's all BS, because you can do it. You can become that. The question is, how badly do you want it? The question is, how badly do you want to express the fullest expression of who you could be? How badly do you want to share your gifts with the world in a magical and powerful way? And your ability to access that and bring that forward is the thing that will have someone fall in love with you. And that is the most spiritual thing you will ever do in your whole life. So finding love is a spiritual process. If you want to find love, honor this process. Accept this process. Say, my journey in life is to become the fullest expression of who I could ever be. And on the way, it's not even that you have to become that before you meet the person. Meeting the person is usually something that happens on the way to that, and they will actually support you in becoming that fullest expression. So as you're on the journey becoming the fullest expression of yourself, you meet that person along the way, and then you together help each other become the fullest expression. That's the way it works. Now, I told you I was going to have a very special opportunity for you to learn about this process in a really profound way. And right now, right this minute, if you want to learn about this process, if you really want to understand what I'm saying, I want you to go to myconsciousrelationship.com, and I want you to register for a workshop I'm holding, where I'm going to break this process down step by step. I'm going to walk you through it. How do you take this spiritual journey? How do you become this fullest expression of yourself? How do you become the person that your ideal partner is out there right now, right in this very moment, right while you're here watching this video? Your ideal partner is out there right now in this moment going, I'm looking for the love of my life and I don't know where she is and I don't know how to find her. And I want to have a family. I want to travel. I want, like, whatever your dream is, their dream is the same dream. And they're sitting right there, right now dreaming about you, wondering when they're going to find you. And you got to figure out, how do I become the person that when they see me, they go, boom, there she is. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And that's what I'm going to break down for you in this workshop. So go to myconsciousrelationship.com to register for that workshop. Workshop is free, not going to cost you anything. Thanks so much for watching today, and I look forward to seeing you in the workshop.